Brandon Miller explodes in the first quarter against the Knicks. The problem is there were other quarters that happened, and they weren't pretty for the Hornets last night. They fall to New York. We'll go through that game, plus rummage through the sicko satchel. All today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. Find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also hosting Locked On NBA. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Hornets daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Of course, Doug is also in charge of that. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So I don't know if that would help us, Doug, when we do Bet the Buzz, because we lost all of them. So just don't be like us and you'll get the $150. Just don't bet the buzz. Don't be like us and you'll get the reward. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also fade the Hornets here recently. It's been a rough stretch. They cannot buy a win. Their seventh straight loss comes last night at the hands of the New York Knicks. A terrible third quarter. Real close game in the first half, but the Knicks, they win 125-101. Mentioned it in the cold open. Brandon Miller goes for 26 points. He goes 5 of 12 from the three-point line, 9 of 19 from the field. Really, the first quarter is when he got hot. Problem is, nobody else really did a lot of scoring except for Micic spread out here and there, and Seth Curry just going berserk in like a maybe fake comeback fourth quarter, Seth. And then the Knicks hit a couple threes themselves. But that was a fun little Seth Curry stretch. Eric Collins was feeling himself on that, too. What were your thoughts from the game last night?
Yeah, Brandon, you mentioned 5 of 12 from 3. His first 5 makes were from 3. So those 5 threes all came in the first quarter before he made a 2-pointer. Here's what I think about Brandon Miller. He must have watched tape, because he was taking advantage of OG Anunoby, a player that in the previous matchup against the Knicks virtually shut him down with his defense. And they're throwing, all these teams are throwing an extra guy at him occasionally, but OG was able to really, really stop him single-handedly in the last game. And so Brandon Miller, I think, went to the tape room, saw some things, and was able to use a number of dribble, body, head moves to get OG into Nick Richards' screen, spinning around him for a drive at one point. He used, I don't know. I mean, I stopped counting at like 27 Euro steps in this game. Like he was feeling himself, man, and I love it. And in the first quarter, it resulted in points. In the second quarter, I thought he got a little less aggressive. There was some unevenness to his offense in this game, which I think is probably more of a result of there just not being enough talent around him right now. But in the third quarter, I thought he got similar looks. They just didn't go down at the rate that they did in the first quarter. But I love it because what you saw there were flashes of Brandon Miller, what he can become, what the all-star, all-NBA level of Brandon Miller becomes if he can do what he did in the first quarter, and maybe some level just short of that through an entire game. Mm-hmm. That's super exciting.
Yeah, I talked about it too in the solo show, Doug, but Brandon Miller seems to step up for the big moments. This isn't news to you. I think we both recognize this, but at Madison Square Garden, that's a game where all the star players, they get hyped to go perform in, and it feels like Brandon Miller certainly took advantage of that, at least in the first quarter, to get started, and the Hornets would eventually lose, we know, but Brandon, even still, against Paul George, his GOAT, Madison Square Garden, the big games, clutch time, we see Brandon rise in that occasion, and I think that has to be nothing else but a good sign moving forward.
And the great ones make adjustments. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I saw in this game is that he made adjustments to the last time that he was up against OG Anunoby. He took advantage of him in this game. I mean, he got his pocket picked one time by OG in that third quarter.
Yeah,
but
it was ugly, but sure. Yeah, there was a pickpocket over there on the sideline. You're right. This is the thing where we were talking about the bad, even though there was a lot of good with Brandon. You did it yesterday. I did it today with that. But you're right. Like, that was it. There was only one turnover from Brandon in this game. That's one in the last two. That's a great sign as well for Brandon.
And you're also seeing continuing to see the adjustments that he made in the last game, which is when he gets the ball in his hands, he's making quick decisions, whether it's him pulling up for the shot or him making the move to drive or even to find other players, which he didn't do a ton here, which is good because I think Charles Lee said it, like, they need this guy to score. You know, as much as we want to see him be a well-rounded player in the future, right now circumstances are such that you need this guy to just put the ball in the cup. I mean, their offense was miserable in the third quarter. They got outscored 36-18. That's why they lost this game. But no one else was really willing or able to hit a shot around Brandon Miller. And then, you know, they didn't really play the starters much in the fourth quarter. So, you know, this was a game where Brandon Miller could have easily gotten 30 or 35.
Let's focus on one more thing before we move to the second segment. I want to focus a little on Mark Williams. We barely got any minutes the first time, and Mark didn't look very good in the first game back from injury. I thought he looked better in this game. I thought he was more comfortable with the basketball in his hands. Like, there was the dunk that he had a little bit later in the second. It was his first dunk of the season, of course. And it was like, oh, yeah, just having a big body, a 7-footer that can just flush it home for an easy deuce. Hell yeah, that's fun. That's a good thing to have out there on the court. Had some touch, did take the shot from, I don't know, like the little floater kind of push shot, like, I don't know, 7-8 feet out. That didn't go. But I thought Mark looked more comfortable, maybe moved off of his spot on some box outs a few times. But other than that, man, like I thought, hey, if the goal is to see Mark get better every game, like from game 1 to game 2, I think you got to see that.
Yeah, catch, spin, move, quick decisions. Like to see that from Mark. I don't think people underappreciated Mark Williams, really just relative to the Hornets' center position in general. They knew what we were missing in having to play Diabate and Tidjane and Grant Williams, just missing in terms of size. But you saw it on display here when Josh Green, terrible game, well, maybe we'll get to that, but just a bad game from Josh Green. Mm-hmm. But he dribbles himself into trouble underneath the basket, has to do a little jump pass, and he kind of just throws it in the direction of the middle of the paint. Yeah. And there's Mark Williams, the Condor Wings, grabbing the ball away from several Knicks defenders and putting it back. That's just availability that would not have been there when you lose several inches on a Moussa Diabate or even a Tidjane Salaun. So Mark looked better. I did get some frustration on the minutes he's playing from every Hornets box score, and all I would say to that is Mark has not played like game basketball in a year. And there's a difference between being fit and being game fit. And he's not game fit right now. And he had a foot injury, which is going to keep him from some of the conditioning that probably would have kept him just regular fit. And so if you play a guy like in that position, if you play a guy big minutes, what you're going to do is you're going to give him a calf injury. You're going to give him some kind of knee injury. It's going to be a soft tissue injury that he's dealing with in the lower extremities if you play him a ton of minutes. So the Hornets are doing the right thing. I know it's frustrating. I hear you because you want to see Mark play. You want to see the core play. A lot of injuries right now, but this is just how it is.
But you don't have the core anyway, too. Think about the offseason, right? Mark Williams put on weight. He got bigger so he could bang around down low. And so more weight, not able to go through a lot of conditioning because he had a lower body injury. He had a foot injury. It is going to take some time with him being a year off. Last thing for Mark, I do think still, I don't know if you saw anything like this last night, but I do think the guards, when they get into the paint, Mark's in the game, they think about it. I think you got to see that again with Mark in the paint last night. Saw Deuce McBride, I believe, go in the paint, think about it, and then just the higher shots, maybe a little bit extra loft than you're comfortable with. He matters. He matters, and I think you're right to point out, Mark, when he's in the game, he just changes everything because of sheer size and knowing where to be.
Yeah, and just one more quick thing, because I know we're going to move on to some other topics, but the big news out of this game was not so much the loss, which I think was expected, even though they've been playing a lot of close games. They played the Knicks close. The Knicks are a great offense. The Hornets have no offense right now. Like, I was expecting the dam to break at some point, and it finally did in that third quarter. They've just they've lost a little bit of the belief in the team's ability to win games. They can compete, but they can't win. So there's that. But the big news out of this game was Tidjane Salaun. He gets a steal on the sidelines inbounds play with like just a few minutes into the first quarter. Yep. Full speed. Josh Hart steps on his foot. He twists his ankle hard. He comes off the court, did not want to go back to the back and have it looked at. He wanted to try to walk it off. I mean, he's got two hearts. He's got more heart than Josh Hart. It's crazy. But they did finally force him to go back. And, of course, the reason why he didn't want to go back is because he knew what they were going to find, which was a sprained ankle. We don't know the severity yet, I don't think, how long he's going to be out. So maybe we can talk about that when we get that news next week. But I wrote in my notes, why does everything have to hurt so much? Why aren't we allowed to love and be loved? Is the only relief the sweet release of death? That's where we are with the injury situation.
Well, that goes into the second bullet point that you're reading on YouTube. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Yeah, more injuries, more losses. Did the tank start without us? We'll talk about it coming up next, LOH. Before we get to that, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com. Again, robinhood.com/gold. I'll repeat that one more time. robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. More Locked On Hornets ahead. The Hornets, no stranger to injuries. Tidjane Salaun suffered one very early last night. You mentioned that. Yeah, Hornets PR. They tweet out that he left the first quarter of that game with the left ankle sprain. He would be out for the remainder of that game. They tweeted that out pretty early, as you alluded to. So Tidjane, don't know how long he's going to be out, but now not only can you not play the rookies with a rookie being out, but now you're going into some emergency mode here, power forward wise. Miles Bridges, no. Grant Williams out for the season. Tidjane Salaun, he can't go out there to the court. Like, where do you go? Is JT Thor available? Is it time for more Thor?
Yeah. No, he's playing with the Cavs. Well, he's playing with the Cavs G League team.
Yeah. So it's brutal. I'll let you take us here, Doug, because I also know that we got a disabled player exception. Maybe that comes in handy with all the injuries they suffered and Tidjane Salaun. This was for Grant, the disabled player exception, but it would also come in handy to just have reinforcements with Tidjane being out and Miles being out. But maybe they don't use it. What do you think about the disabled player exception being granted to the Hornets?
Yeah, so we got a question here from Tyler on everyhornetsboxscore.com. He said, big assumption I know, Melo, Man, and Miles are all back in the next couple of weeks and the team starts to really buzz. Do you have any hopes for trade pieces, maybe a little bit more vet presence for Nick Richards to find in your Christmas stocking this season? And they did get this disabled player exception, which is $6.8 million.
6.5.
If I'm right, it's
6.5.
6.5. It's half. Yeah, that makes sense because it's half of the mid-level, the full mid-level, which is what Grant is making. So they could use that to go sign a player in free agency. They could use that, who is in free agency right now because it expires on March 10th. Or they could use it to pick up a guy off of waivers, or they could use it in a trade. And so I think that's where it's more likely to be used. in a maybe a more complex deal around February when the trade deadline hits. They could help facilitate a deal with that extra $6.5 million that does not have to be matched. That's the whole idea behind an exception. We could give the exception to another team, and they can just give us a player without having to match salaries. So, maybe it's a smaller deal that's a salary dump for a team. I don't necessarily see them using it to figure out this power forward situation,
right,
though they may. But I don't see that happening. I think more likely it's going to be used to acquire a couple extra second-round picks in the February trade deadline. To answer Tyler's question, I don't see them making a trade before Christmas. But if a few more injuries, and they're going to have to do something. I mean, we're reaching that sort of critical mass point that Memphis reached last year, where you've got to either go to the G League and just take as many options there as you can, or go out and sign someone. But this was always an evaluation season, and I think we talked about it. It's like if they were fully healthy, there were still questions to answer about this roster in terms of them being able to compete for a play-in spot, not even talking about a playoff spot, and you can't answer any of those questions when you're injured. So I think obviously this franchise is going to focus on trying to get these guys as healthy as possible to see what that looks like, but ultimately your focus is going to be on the offseason.
Yeah, and by the way, the Indiana Pacers also were granted a $2.2 million, $1.2 million disabled player exception. So they're working with about 3.4, it looks like. The interesting part there is if there is a team needed to facilitate a trade, the Hornets would have more wiggle room. They have double the disabled player exception that Indiana has. And if we learned anything about Jeff Peterson this offseason, he's got the connects. He was the guy that people were calling when they needed a third team to facilitate a trade. So if you're making the big move for Klay Thompson, but you need to go through some crazy process with the second round picks and all that, Jeff Peterson has the connects, and he's like, hey, why don't you throw us Josh Green to create some more room for yourself? And all it will take is a couple second rounders, right? Cool. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Same thing with the Knicks when they took on a few player contracts, got picks in order to land Karl Anthony Towns up in New York. So maybe you just do it again. Like, clearly Jeff Peterson has done a fantastic job utilizing this very thing to improve the future of this team.
And a lot of teams need to do that because of the new CBA that was signed a few years ago and the aprons that not only hurt the bottom line of these teams that are paying a lot of money for their roster, but hurt their ability to retool their team and add additional players. And so you're going to have a few teams that are sitting around the first apron or maybe even the second apron that want to shed some cash or shed some contracts. And so, again, that's where the Hornets can step in and say, yeah, sure, fine. We've got this exception. You need to get rid of $6.5 million, bing, bang, boom, give us a couple of second-round picks, and we'll call it a day. And so that's just free money for the Hornets. And obviously, the Hornets would rather have Grant Williams not having an ACL tear because they've got Grant Williams on contract past this season, and he's a super valuable member of what they're trying to accomplish here. So, it stinks that they have this because it means no Grant, but also now they have a tool to go and make their roster work. But yeah, I just think that they are. What does tank mode mean? I just think it means you're not desperately going out there looking for a legitimate power forward option. You're not going to be looking to upgrade this roster at the trade deadline. That's what it doesn't mean that the coach or the players or anybody not focused on winning every single game they can win. And I think, honestly, getting this core healthy should be the focus. So if LaMelo has to spend a little extra time out, if, get Tre Mann's back fully healthy, get Miles, whatever version of Miles, get him healthy so that, if you do want to make some trades for Tre Mann or Miles Bridges, we need a good showcase of what those players can do over the course of 10 or 15 games. And so you got to get those guys healthy where they're not constantly in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, so just to answer the question myself here, I've spent a lot of time on the DPE. Yeah, you know me. I'm looking at the tank. Did it start without us? Look, so you're right. They're not going to trade for a player to improve this roster. If we're asking what does tanking mean, it means the organization is sacrificing the now for the future. The coaches are not doing that. They're trying to win every game. Most of the time, the coaches are not doing that. The players, pretty much all of the time, are not doing that unless you're going through some funny business. But that's what it means. The organization sacrificing the now for the future. And with all these injuries, I just don't know if they have any other choice. Doug, I was looking at ESPN projections for the NBA draft, this upcoming selection process. The Hornets are projected to have the 3rd pick, and it makes sense. It's their 7th straight loss. They just had 5 home games. They didn't win one time. Now they have another injury on top of that with a guy that was getting significant minutes in Tidjane Salaun. Tidjane is the type of guy that you would play in, yes, tank mode and also win now mode. So now you can't even tank the way you want to tank because your first round pick isn't going to be available for all the minutes. He would be out there like 35 minutes if you were really embracing the tank full throttle. Now he can't even be out there because of the ankle sprain. So yeah, it makes sense that ESPN, with all of their writers teaming up together, trying to figure out who the top lottery teams are going to be, the Hornets find themselves at number 3. It sucks that we're having this conversation before we even get to mid-December, before we even get to the new year. But God, it looks like we're headed that way again. And it really sucks, and it hurts, and it's painful, and we're going to be here to document all of it.
Now, I don't think the Hornets are going to be in any rush or any kind of desperation to upgrade this roster before Christmas, certainly, to Tyler's question. And I think we've answered a couple of other questions here in the Sicko Satchel. Haley was asking, do you think we go for the lottery or try to right the ship with more of the roster is healthy, or go for some kind of winning experience, especially for LaMelo? It would have been nice to get LaMelo and Brandon postseason experience, just not in the cards this season with how the injuries panned out at the beginning of the season. Casual Hindu writes in, has your opinion of playoffs versus save our pick changed with the recent injuries? I think we just answered that. Yes. You can't. It just I just
don't think you have an option, right? Like that. Yeah. It's not even that with this new information, I've changed what I want to do. It's there. I don't know what other choice you have because of all, think about all the offensive firepower that just isn't in a uniform right now. It's stupid. Miles, Melo, Tre Mann. Those are 3 of your top 4 scoring options right there. Brandon Miller is the only one of your top 4 scoring options out on the floor right now.
Now, there are going to be opportunities to upgrade this roster for the future, and there was a name that popped up in Michael Scotto's trade rumors availabilities list that I think is very interesting. It's a name that's been associated with the Charlotte Hornets, or was associated with the Charlotte Hornets in this past offseason. Maybe we can talk about that next segment. We've got a naughty or nice list from Shuman in the Sicko Satchel still left to go. So I think we burn it all out in the third segment.
All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Sticking with the theme, we'll burn it all out. We will set up a nice little cozy Christmas fire. We will roast some chestnuts over that fire, and we will answer some Sicko Satchel questions. That's all still to come on LOH.
And a 2025 NBA mock draft.
This episode is brought to you by my barking dog in the background. No? Golden Retriever? No? Okay, sorry. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, Doug, take us where you want to take us. Sicko Satchel, roasting chestnuts over an open fire. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, we're going to have to rapid fire here because I have so much, because this is your fault. You were talking about them being projected for the 3rd pick. So you know what that's going to do to me. You know that's going to make me immediately go to the Google machine and find some NBA mock drafts. And boy, did I find one.
Oh, no, already? God, it's December. Oh,
that's right. And December 5th, 2024, Jonathan Wasserman from the Bleacher Report is putting out his 2025 NBA mock draft. Scrolling, Washington Wizards take Cooper Flagg, of course. New Orleans takes Dylan Harper. He has the Utah Jazz at 3 taking Ace Bailey. Philadelphia taking VJ Edgecombe. The Charlotte Hornets in the 5th position taking Trey Johnson out of Texas, the shooting guard, 6'6", 190, 18 years old. Pro comparisons, Cam Thomas, a little extra scoring juice for the Charlotte Hornets at the shooting guard position.
Can we get him now to help out, or is that not allowed? If that's not
it
allowed,
used to be
then that's
allowed. Now it's not allowed anymore.
Okay. What else you got for us?
So let's go to some of these trade rumors, and I want to read a comment here by Haley, who really got her money's worth on these comments. I think she dropped 3. So if you want to drop your comment or question into the Sicko Satchel, make sure you've joined the Sicko Brigade. If you haven't done it before, you can get a free trial, 14-day free trial at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Hornets. It's the official home of the Sicko Satchel, and I'll be opening it back up over the weekend. Haley comments, one more comment. I love Cody, even if he stresses me out. I'm sure a lot of people want to trade him or let him go, but I still think he does valuable stuff. And I like that the 2 teams I'm watching in the East each have a Martin twin. This was after the Philadelphia game. We got a little Martin on Martin action. So Michael Scotto, in his write-up that he did previewing the teams that, or the players that teams could put on the trade block, Cody Martin was on the trade block for the Hornets. And here's what he writes. Martin and future second-round draft picks from Charlotte were discussed in sign-and-trade discussions for Cleveland Cavaliers swingman Isaac Okoro this summer, which fell through once Okoro agreed to re-sign with Cleveland, league sources told Hoops Hype. But Walker, just because he signed with Cleveland, which may have been more advantageous for him to do at that time, doesn't mean that those discussions can't get started back up and the Hornets could not acquire Isaac Okoro in the future. What do you think about that?
So a couple things. One, this reminds me of the Josh Green situation. Remember, they were interested in Josh Green around the time that they traded PJ Washington, and what they did was they went right back to him once there was another opportunity to acquire him. So maybe you copy and paste that towards Isaac Okoro. The issue is, did you get somebody already similar defensively in Josh Green? Now you don't have the necessity for Isaac Okoro anymore. That would be my only question. But even still, if you feel like you need some reinforcements, if you don't feel like everybody on this roster right now are going to be a part of your core and you want more defense, maybe they still go after Okoro. But I could absolutely see it. We've already seen them go back for seconds on Josh Green.
I mean, right now this season, again, low usage for Cleveland because they have a ton of weapons. Very similar to Josh Green in Dallas, where he was surrounded by a ton of weapons, low usage player. But his points per shot attempt right now are 130.8. And if I go to his, of course, I've got to log in. I'll log in and find out what his three-point shooting accuracy. But I have a feeling if your points per shot attempt that high, you're probably shooting pretty well from 3. And so Isaac Okoro, hopefully that could be like a 3-and-D package for the Hornets.
46%. And remember, he was well, the thing is, he was not a good shooter coming out of college. That was a real question. But after his rookie season, 35, 36, 39. Right now, it's 46%. So he's been
to me, I say dial it up, man. I don't think you can have enough of those guys in today's NBA. Like whether they're coming off the bench or they're starting for you. And this, I don't know how this Josh Green thing is going to turn out. Like sometimes he looks like exactly the kind of guy that everyone sold us on, and then there are other games where he's dropping goose eggs or just. I honestly thought Charles Lee got mad at him in this. There was a few cutaways when he pulled Josh Green after he picked up his third foul because he picked up 2 early ones and he was yelling like, Josh, you got 2. And Josh was like,
he's had a fouling problem too. You know, we don't talk about it as much. Like LaMelo, your star player, we're going to focus a lot on your star player, especially when he fouls out a ton. But Josh Green fouls a lot, and it's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, missing shots. I thought he took some bad shots. Again, the little tension there between Charles Lee and the player that he loved in the offseason for creating chaos on the defensive end. So I would totally be for that. Okay, final thing here from the Sicko Satchel, and it's from Shuman. He wants to know naughty or nice list. I love it. Play a little game here of naughty or nice list. He's got a list of things for us. We got to say naughty or nice. Are you ready?
I'm totally ready for this game.
Number one, naughty or nice, our offensive schemes and sets so far this season, naughty or nice?
Yeah, probably kind of tough for me, but I think it's nice. I think you've had some nice ATOs from Charles Lee. I think that started to develop a little bit later in November, where you get to see some guys get freed up for shots. Ultimately, Brandon Miller now settling in nicely with taking a lot of three-pointers. Who knew you couldn't make a sweeping generalization about a player just 7 games into a new system? Who would have thought that? Brandon playing a lot better via the three. I think the problems that Brandon is suffering right now is because of his prototype as a player, not because of the scheme that he plays in. So, yeah, for me, I do like when everybody's out there, I think I like the system. They are competitive, even with all of these guys being out due to injury. It still sucks that they have a lot of L's, but for me, I think it's more so been nice with the scheme and the system that Charles Lee runs.
Early in the season, when LaMelo Ball was on a heater, they didn't really have many. Like in today's NBA, when you have a point guard like LaMelo Ball who can create all over the floor, has otherworldly court vision, you don't call a lot of plays. You have some ideas of what you want to do. You install some things, but the point guard is really going to drive that conversation more so than them calling sets. But there are certain situations where you do, like particularly at the beginning of the game when you want to get a player going that may be not playing particularly well, you can do some things at the very beginning of the game. It's like in football where they have their first 15 plays. You can have a little bit of that, and then you say, all right, LaMelo, you handle it from here. And I think they did that successfully with Josh Green and Brandon Miller, who were struggling to start this season.
And Miles Bridges. Remember Miles Bridges, that first Detroit game, they really dialed some stuff up for him to get going.
So to me, I'm going nice here as well. And I would say he's been more challenged to draw up more stuff with LaMelo out. And you're seeing some improvements from Brandon. I think a lot of that's on Brandon Miller. Again, watching film with the coaching staff and saying, all right, what are we doing here to get you more open, better shots, better shot quality. And I think you're starting to see the fruits of that labor a little bit. We've got some time to go here. But I'd say so far, this is a process versus results thing, right? Because you look at the offense and you go, the offense is doo-doo right now. How can you say the offensive schemes and sets are great? It's because you look at the talent level that he's working with, and I'm not going to blame the chef right now when I can see these other things that he's adjusted well.
Yeah, look, and Micic played well last night, actually. He's probably given us 3 games that you would say he's been average or above average. Last night was one of them. But the answer to that question you just asked, how could you say his system is good when the offense doesn't look very good? It's because somebody that was out of the rotation is now getting 30 minutes a night. That's why, because of the injuries. What's
naughty
next?
or nice? Coaching culture and locker room engagement.
Oh my God, this is easy. Nice. Charles Lee, the culture, they're trying so hard to build this thing up. I think they're doing it the right way. Think about their draft profile. They draft Tidjane Salaun. Yes, there's a lot of high upside. The shooting is there too, so that's fantastic being ahead of schedule. But also they need a dog, right? Give me somebody with that dog in them. Give me someone with high character. Plays with competitive joy, which has been a real phrase from Charles Lee. That's Tidjane. That's KJ Simpson, who had maybe the best draft reaction when he was drafted, crying and all of that. I'm ready to run through a brick wall. Show me where it is. So you're drafting those types of players, and you have guys like a Grant Williams, like a Brandon Miller. You get Taj Gibson, who is all sorts of hell to deal with in his prime. Yeah, he's older, but he can instill part of that wisdom on this culture. Charles Lee, I think, cares about the right stuff. Absolutely, all nice. I'm really excited about where this franchise is headed because I do think they care about the right things.
I'm sorry. I can't fake any first takery here and debate you on this. I think you're right.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a few more examples to further buttress the point, which is that he held LaMelo Ball accountable for fourth quarter decision making with the benching against the Nets without losing LaMelo Ball, without losing the locker room. You don't do that unless you have put up a few, to use a Borrego term, you've put up a few pillars to keep your building stable.
4? Is it 4 that you put up or just a few? I
don't think he's gotten to 4 yet. He hasn't been coached long enough to get to 4. I think he's got 1 or 2 pillars up, but it was enough to keep the building, to keep the ceiling where the ceiling needed to be, which is the roof. And and so you don't lose the locker room there. He hasn't lost the locker room yet. I mean, the dam broke in this game. They of course get blown out, but they've competed so hard despite all of the injuries. They're starting to get a little bit frustrated. It'll be interesting to see how he continues to navigate that as he started to get a little bit more critical of his team. That early season positivity has started to give way to what this season really is. So we'll continue to monitor it, but so far it's been nice. Final thing, FanDuel Sports app performance this season. Walker, naughty or nice? How much experience do you get on the FanDuel Sports app?
I mean, that's how I watch the games, so I get a lot of experience with it. I got to tell you, it's been pretty naughty for me, Doug. It's not been great. It's been pretty naughty. Last night was maybe it's unfair. If we would have gotten to this question yesterday, then I wouldn't have had as frustrating an answer. But last night, I just got kicked out so many times. It freezes up on me. It's not the internet because I'm able to scroll everywhere else. Yeah, I got the high-speed stuff so I could do this very thing. So I could stream games, watch them real time, and I'm getting kicked out. I don't like the user. It's not user-friendly. You get kicked out. So instead of just going to the post-game, it takes a while to get kicked out of the regular season, or excuse me, the end of the game. So then I got to wait, what happened? Am I frozen? No, I just got to click watch again. Okay, I'm watching. Now it's blurry for the first 30 seconds to a minute and 30 seconds before the picture gets clear enough. It's real naughty here. It was less naughty if I would have answered this yesterday. It's real naughty right now. It's been a bad boy.
So I don't have to use the FanDuel Sports app because I'm in Nashville. I'm not in Charlotte, but I don't have to use it to watch most Charlotte Hornets games, I should say. But I have to use it when they play Atlanta or Memphis because both of those teams, for reasons I'll never understand, because Memphis is 3.5 hours away, Atlanta's 3.5 hours away. Why that's blacked out in Nashville, I will never know. But they are. So I do use the FanDuel Sports app. I tried to watch the Atlanta game, but of course, I have a baby. The baby was sick, and I had to take care of the baby. And so by the time I got done taking care of the baby, then the game was over. Okay, that's fine because we live in 2024, right?
That's right.
Everything's on demand. You can get anything. You got Netflix, you can watch anything. You watch shows, you watch Boy Meets, you can watch the entirety of Boy Meets World right now on Disney Plus or something. A beloved show that we loved in our childhood.
I'll have to
that
check
was
it out.
Totally unavailable unless you had collected all the DVDs. But now you can watch anything, anywhere, anytime. I don't know why I got hung up on Boy Meets World there. It's a past frustration of mine not being able to find.
It's easy to get hung up on Topanga. Once she enters the brain, it's hard to kick her out.
Right. So I go to FanDuel. I go to the sports app. I pull it up. I see the post game. I don't want the post game. Why do they even separate the post game? If I watch it on NBA.com, they just roll right. A little graphic comes up. They say post game press conferences next. They roll right into the post game press conferences. Why do you need to separate it? Okay, that's fine. I'll just find where the game is on demand. It's not. You can't it took till the next day for the game to be available to watch. That is insanity. It is absolute insanity. This could not be. Naughty is honestly an insufficient word to describe the failure, the utter failure and disaster apocalypse that FanDuel, the namesake, and Bally before it have wrought on not just Hornets fandom, but the 11 other franchises that they have held hostage, well, willingly. I mean, this is Stockholm Syndrome that the Hornets and so many of themselves put them through for a bag of cash. This is utterly absurd. They should get nothing in their stocking. Coal would be too much because you could sell the coal and make money. Nothing in their stocking.
No, you can just put coal to help fuel the fire. No, you get no fire.
And take their stocking. They don't even get a stocking. I want the stocking back.
Doug, it kicked me out. And then it put me on the Carolina Hurricanes game, and I couldn't switch over. It put me right there.
They're punishing you with hockey.
I'm trying to switch up. This is a real story. This is a real thing that happened last night. I get kicked out. The box for the Carolina Hurricanes game is highlighted. I'm like, okay, no big deal. I'll press the arrow button and then be able to select the Hornets game.
No way.
Arrow button. Come on. Hornets. Give me Hornets. Kicked out. Boom. Have to re-enter, refresh the app. Finally, I'm able to watch the game after a minute and a half of fuzziness, but then I'm allowed to watch the game.
And listen, sometimes League Pass is no better. I did see a funny, I'm seeing funny stuff on social media since I've joined Blue Sky. I'm seeing funny stuff again instead of sad stuff all the time. So I saw someone post League Pass if you try to press a button twice, and it was the meme of the dog that's like hanging out the window, and it's like, I'm going to kill myself.
Oh, dude, it's such a first world problem. Also, when Siri doesn't hear you the first time correctly, that's when also you just want to jump out of the window and fall to your timely death. Siri doesn't respond, having to press a button twice. I'm soft. I will admit that. Just give me my Hornets basketball, and I'll give you a nice designation in the Naughty or Nice game. That'll do
Hello,
it for
darkness,
Locked On
my old
Hornets.
friend. Enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll be back with you on Monday for more bright and shiny happiness. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can check him out again today, by the way. He hosts Locked On NBA. You can listen to me again today via radio, WFNZ.com. Anywhere you get your podcast too. We'll be uploading the Wes and Walker podcast content to Apple and Spotify. Follow me on Twitter.
On
Walker
demand,
Mail.
really? Oh, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
How do you do that?
FanDuel. Just saying. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday.